Why do women often want the man who ignores them while losing interest in the man who gives them endless attention? It's a question that has confused men for generations. You answer her messages, you make yourself available, you try to be thoughtful, consistent, and attentive. Everything you've been taught tells you that more effort should create more attraction. Yet reality often seems to tell a different story. The harder one man chases, the faster she pulls away. Meanwhile, another man appears almost unaffected. He isn't constantly texting. He doesn't rearrange his life just to keep her interested. He doesn't seem worried about losing her attention. And somehow, she begins thinking about him instead. Why does this happen? Is it because women truly want to be ignored? Or is there something much deeper beneath the surface? Most men spend years trying to change what they do. They search for the perfect text, the perfect timing, the perfect words. But Stoicism teaches us a very different lesson. It reminds us that lasting influence never begins with clever tactics. It begins with character. As Epictetus wisely said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Perhaps that's the real difference. The man who appears to ignore a woman is often the man who has already learned to master himself. His emotions are not ruled by anxiety. His attention is not driven by fear. His happiness is not dependent on being chosen. And whether he realizes it or not, people can feel that, including women. In this video, we'll explore 5 psychological reasons why women often want men who ignore them. Not to teach you how to manipulate anyone, not to encourage childish games, but to understand the timeless principles that quietly shape attraction. Because once you understand why this happens, you'll stop asking, "How can I make her want me?" and begin asking a far more powerful question. How can I become the kind of man whose presence speaks for itself? Let's begin with the first reason.
Reason number 1. Because scarcity creates value. The first reason women often want the man who ignores them is surprisingly simple, because what is constantly available is rarely appreciated. This isn't just true in relationships, it's a timeless principle of human nature. People instinctively place greater value on what feels limited than on what feels unlimited. Attention works the same way. When a man makes himself available at every moment, replies within seconds, changes his plans without hesitation, and constantly seeks opportunities to stay in a woman's mind, something unexpected begins to happen. His attention slowly loses its weight. Not because he's kind, not because he's caring, but because what is always available gradually becomes expected. And once something becomes expected, it often stops feeling valuable. Now consider another man. He is respectful, he enjoys her company, he responds with warmth, but he doesn't abandon his priorities every time his phone vibrates. He doesn't interrupt his work simply to send another message. He doesn't measure his worth by how quickly she replies. His attention is never careless. It is intentional. And because it is intentional, it carries value. This is where many men misunderstand attraction. They assume the woman is attracted because he ignores her, but that's only what they see. What she actually responds to is something much deeper. She senses that his attention has limits, that it is guided by purpose rather than impulse. She's not competing with other women. She's sharing space with a man who refuses to compete with his own priorities. Scarcity has always shaped human perception. We appreciate peaceful moments because they're rare. We treasure genuine friendships because they're uncommon. We protect our time because we know it cannot be replaced. Attention follows exactly the same principle. The rarer it becomes, the more carefully people treat it. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology gave it a name.
Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." At first, this quote seems unrelated to attraction, but look deeper. A man who has truly begun to live has a life that demands his attention. He has responsibilities, he has discipline, he has goals that continue whether someone texts him back or not. His life is already moving forward. Because of that, his attention naturally becomes selective. Not calculated, not manipulative, simply selective. And that difference changes everything. Many men try to create scarcity by pretending to be busy. They delay replies on purpose. They disappear for days. They force silence because they believe mystery alone creates attraction. But forced distance is easy to recognize. It feels artificial. Real scarcity cannot be performed. It grows naturally from a life that already has direction. When a man is deeply committed to his work, his health, his family, his purpose, he doesn't have to pretend to be unavailable. Sometimes he simply is. And there is a profound difference between someone who is unavailable because he is playing a game and someone who is unavailable because he is building a meaningful life. Women notice that difference, perhaps not consciously, but emotionally. Because emotional attraction is rarely based only on words. It is built from patterns, consistency, presence, and the quiet realization that this man's attention is something valuable, not because he withholds it, but because he gives it with intention. So if you want to understand why women often want the man who appears to ignore them, don't focus on the silence itself. Focus on what that silence communicates. It communicates that his life is already full, that his time already has value, and that his attention must be earned through genuine connection, not simply requested through constant availability. But scarcity alone doesn't explain the entire picture, because even a busy man can still be driven by insecurity. The deeper reason lies beneath his schedule. It lies within his emotional world. And that's where the second reason begins. Reason number 2, because it signals emotional independence. If scarcity explains why a man's attention feels valuable, emotional independence explains why that attention feels trustworthy. Many men assume women are attracted to men who seem emotionally distant, but emotional distance and emotional independence are not the same thing. A distant man builds walls. An emotionally independent man builds stability. From the outside, they may look similar, yet they create completely different experiences. Imagine a man whose emotional state changes every time a woman responds differently than he hoped. A delayed reply ruins his afternoon. A canceled date ruins his weekend. A short message fills his mind with questions. Did I say something wrong? Is she losing interest? What should I text next? Without realizing it, he slowly hands over control of his emotional life to someone he barely knows. Every interaction becomes a test of his self-worth. Every silence feels like rejection. Every conversation becomes an attempt to regain certainty. That emotional pressure is difficult to hide. People may not recognize it consciously, but they can feel it. Now picture another man. He enjoys getting to know her. He appreciates her company. He hopes the relationship grows naturally, but whether she replies in 10 minutes or tomorrow morning, his life continues. He still goes to work. He keeps his promises. He trains his body. He spends time with family and friends. His emotional balance is not interrupted by uncertainty, not because he cares less, but because his peace was never built upon another person's attention. That is emotional independence. It is not coldness. It is not indifference. It is the quiet confidence of knowing that your happiness belongs to you before it belongs to anyone else. Seneca expressed this timeless idea in a simple sentence: "He who is brave is free." Most people hear that quote and think about physical courage. The Stoics meant something deeper. Real courage is remaining emotionally steady when life refuses to give you certainty. It is resisting the urge to chase reassurance every time fear appears. It is having the discipline to let events unfold instead of trying to control every outcome. That kind of courage creates freedom. Freedom from anxiety, freedom from constant validation, freedom from living at the mercy of someone else's decisions. Ironically, that freedom is exactly what many women find attractive. Not because they admire emotional distance, but because emotional independence creates emotional safety. A man who can regulate himself rarely creates unnecessary drama. He doesn't overreact to small disappointments. He doesn't demand constant reassurance. He doesn't make another person responsible for keeping him emotionally balanced. Instead, he brings calm into the relationship, and calm has a quiet influence that words cannot imitate. This is why so many men misunderstand what appears to be ignoring. The attraction is not created by the lack of attention, it is created by the absence of desperation. Women don't simply notice what a man does, they notice the emotional state behind what he does. A delayed reply driven by manipulation feels different from a delayed reply that comes from a man fully engaged in his own life. Silence motivated by pride feels different from silence born from inner peace. One creates confusion, the other creates respect. If you want to become the kind of man women naturally gravitate toward, don't practice emotional distance. Practice emotional independence. Learn to enjoy someone's presence without depending on it. Learn to care without clinging. Learn to love without losing yourself. Because the strongest relationships are never built by two people trying to complete one another. They are built by two people who are already complete enough to walk side by side. But emotional independence is only part of the answer. The next reason goes even deeper, because a man who doesn't chase usually has something far more important competing for his attention.
Reason number 3, because he has a purpose beyond her. If emotional independence explains why a man remains steady, purpose explains why he never becomes consumed by one person. One of the most attractive qualities in any human being is not confidence, it is direction. A man without direction naturally begins searching for something to organize his life around. Sometimes that becomes a relationship. Sometimes it becomes another person's approval. Without realizing it, he slowly turns one woman into the center of his emotional world. His schedule begins revolving around her availability. His mood follows her attention. His motivation depends on her responses. And the more his world shrinks around one person, the more his sense of self begins to disappear. Ironically, this is often the moment attraction starts fading, not because caring is unattractive, but because abandoning your own path never is. Now consider a different kind of man. He enjoys being with a woman. He welcomes love into his life. But long before she arrived, his life already had direction. He has work that matters to him, goals that challenge him, habits that strengthen him, responsibilities that demand his attention. Every morning, he wakes up with a purpose that exists independently of his relationship status. A woman becomes an important part of his journey. She never becomes the journey itself. That distinction changes everything. Many men mistake purpose for ambition. They believe purpose only belongs to entrepreneurs, leaders, or highly successful people. But Stoicism teaches something much simpler. Purpose is knowing what deserves your attention each day. It is choosing your values before your emotions choose for you. As Musonius Rufus wrote, "It is not possible to live well today unless you treat it as your last day." At first glance, this quote seems to speak only about mortality, but its deeper meaning is about intention. When you recognize that your time is limited, you become careful about where your attention goes. You stop spending your days chasing what constantly escapes you. You begin investing your energy in what helps you grow. That is what purpose does. It organizes your attention.
And wherever your attention consistently goes, your character follows. This is why women are often intrigued by men who appear difficult to reach, not because they are unavailable, but because they are already engaged in building a meaningful life. Their attention is occupied by something larger than immediate gratification. They don't disappear to create mystery, they disappear because life genuinely calls them elsewhere. There is an unmistakable difference between a man who ignores a woman to gain power and a man whose purpose naturally limits his availability. One is performing, the other is simply living. People can feel that difference without explanation, without words. Purpose changes the way a man walks into a room. He doesn't seek attention because his attention is already invested. He doesn't chase admiration because he is too busy earning his own respect. He doesn't need to convince people that he has value. His daily actions quietly reveal it. This is one of the greatest lessons Stoicism offers. The quality of your life is determined less by what captures your attention and more by what deserves it. When a man builds a life that continually demands discipline, growth, and responsibility, he naturally becomes less available for distraction, including the distraction of seeking constant validation through romantic attention. Ironically, that is often when attraction grows, because women are rarely drawn to a man whose life revolves around them. They are drawn to a man whose life has enough meaning that inviting someone into it feels like a privilege rather than a necessity. So, if you want to understand why women often want the man who appears to ignore them, don't focus on becoming harder to reach. Focus on becoming harder to distract. Because a man with purpose never has to pretend that his time is valuable. The way he lives makes that obvious. But even purpose is not the deepest reason, because a man can have ambition, a busy schedule, and still quietly seek approval from everyone around him. That's why the next reason may be the most important of all. It begins the moment a man stops looking to others for permission to believe in his own worth.
Reason number 4. Because he doesn't seek validation. By now, a pattern is beginning to emerge. The man who appears to ignore a woman is rarely trying to ignore her at all. More often than not, he simply isn't chasing something from her that he should be giving himself. Validation. Many men believe they are pursuing love, but if they look honestly at their own behavior, they often discover they are pursuing reassurance instead. They want to know they are attractive. They want to know they are enough. They want confirmation that they have been chosen. Every text becomes a search for certainty. Every compliment becomes proof of their worth. Every delayed reply feels like a question about who they are. Without realizing it, they begin asking another person to answer a question that only they can answer themselves. Am I enough? That is a heavy burden for any relationship to carry, because no one can permanently provide the confidence that another person refuses to build within himself. Now compare that with a man who already respects himself. He enjoys appreciation, he welcomes affection, he values genuine connection, but he doesn't depend on those things to believe in his own worth. Whether he receives praise or criticism, interest or rejection, his opinion of himself remains rooted in something deeper: his values, his discipline, his character.
That quiet certainty changes the entire dynamic. He speaks differently, he listens differently, he makes decisions differently. Not because he is trying to appear confident, but because he no longer needs every interaction to protect his self-esteem. The Stoics understood this better than most people do today. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." This is one of the most powerful ideas in Stoic philosophy. Strength is not something waiting to be handed to you by another person.
It already exists within you, but it can only be found when you stop searching for it everywhere else. Many men search for confidence in a woman's attention. The Stoics searched for it in their own character. That difference changes everything. When your confidence depends upon someone's approval, you become afraid of losing it. Fear makes you overthink. Fear makes you chase. Fear makes you compromise your standards simply to avoid rejection. But when your confidence comes from living according to your own principles, approval becomes pleasant, not necessary. Ironically, this is the moment your interactions become more authentic. You stop saying what you think she wants to hear. You stop pretending to be someone you're not. You stop negotiating your values for the chance to be liked. Instead, you become consistent. And consistency is far more attractive than performance. Women are remarkably sensitive to this difference, not because they consciously analyze it, but because emotional authenticity is difficult to fake. A man who constantly seeks validation carries a subtle tension. He is always watching for signs, always measuring reactions, always adjusting himself to gain acceptance. A man who validates himself carries a different energy. He is present, he is relaxed, he's attentive without being anxious. He has nothing to prove because he is no longer arguing with himself about his own value. That is why women often become curious about the man who seems to ignore them, not because he enjoys making them chase, but because his self-worth is no longer waiting for someone else's permission. He treats attention as something to share, not something to collect. And people naturally trust those who are no longer trying to convince the world of their value. But there is still one final reason, perhaps the deepest reason of all. Because true attraction reaches its highest form only when both people are completely free to choose one another. And that is exactly what we'll explore next.
Reason number 5. Because he gives her the freedom to choose. Perhaps the deepest reason women are often drawn to the man who seems to ignore them has nothing to do with silence, distance, or mystery. It has everything to do with freedom. Human beings naturally resist feeling controlled. The more someone tries to persuade us, convince us, or pressure us toward a decision, the more our instinct is to pull away. Attraction is no different. It cannot be negotiated, it cannot be argued into existence, and it certainly cannot be earned through endless effort. Yet many men unknowingly do exactly that. When they fear losing a woman, they begin trying to manage the outcome. They send another message, they explain themselves again, they look for one more opportunity to prove their value, one more chance to change her mind, one more conversation that might finally produce certainty. But attraction has never grown from pressure. It grows from freedom. The man who appears to ignore a woman often does something very different. He expresses his interest honestly. He shows respect. He creates opportunities to connect. And then he allows her to choose. He doesn't force momentum that isn't naturally there. He doesn't chase a decision that hasn't been freely made. Most importantly, he doesn't try to control another person's feelings simply because he cannot control his own fear. That is not passivity, it is strength. The Stoics believed that wisdom begins by recognizing the difference between what belongs to us and what never has. As Epictetus taught, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Few ideas capture healthy relationships more clearly than this. Your honesty belongs to you. Your character belongs to you. Your effort belongs to you. But another person's feelings, their timing, their choices, those have never been yours to command.
The moment a man truly accepts this, something remarkable happens. He stops trying to manufacture attraction. Instead, he creates the conditions where attraction can grow naturally. He becomes more present because he is no longer obsessed with the outcome. He listens instead of performing. He observes instead of forcing. He enjoys the moment instead of constantly evaluating where the relationship is going. Ironically, that relaxed presence often makes him far more attractive, not because he mastered a technique, but because he stopped treating another human being like a problem to solve. Women often describe this kind of man as confident, peaceful, grounded. What they are really describing is someone who respects freedom, his own and hers. He understands that love loses its meaning the moment it is demanded. Attention loses its value the moment it is expected. Choice loses its beauty the moment it disappears. That is why he never tries to convince someone to stay. If she chooses to walk beside him, he welcomes her with gratitude. If she chooses another path, he wishes her well and continues walking his own. Not because he feels nothing, but because he refuses to build his identity upon what he cannot control. This is where Stoicism and genuine attraction quietly meet. Neither is about becoming indifferent. Both are about becoming free. Free from desperation, free from fear, free from the exhausting need to force life into your preferred outcome. So, why do women often want the man who seems to ignore them? Not because women enjoy being ignored, but because the man who appears to ignore them is often the man who has learned a far more important lesson. He values his time. He governs his emotions. He lives with purpose. He no longer seeks validation, and above all, he allows people the freedom to choose. That freedom is not weakness. It is quiet confidence. It is self-mastery. And in the Stoic tradition, self-mastery has always been the highest form of strength.
Final thought. The truth behind why women want men who ignore them. If you've stayed with me until this point, you've probably realized something important. The title of this video was never really about ignoring women. It was about understanding what that behavior often represents. A man who seems to ignore a woman is not necessarily trying to make her chase him. More often than not, he is simply living a life that is no longer controlled by the fear of losing her. That is a profound difference. Throughout this video, we've uncovered 5 psychological reasons behind this pattern, not because women are attracted to neglect, but because they are naturally drawn to qualities that neglect sometimes appears to represent. They value attention that has weight, rather than attention that is given without thought. They trust emotional independence more than emotional dependence. They admire a man whose life already has direction before a relationship begins. They respect someone who no longer needs constant validation to feel worthy. And above all, they feel safe around a man who respects both his own freedom and theirs. These are not dating tricks. They are not manipulation techniques. They are expressions of character. That is why Stoicism remains just as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago.
It teaches that lasting influence never comes from controlling other people. It comes from mastering yourself. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Perhaps that is the simplest answer to the question we began with. Don't spend your life trying to become the man who ignores women. Become the man's life is so grounded, whose purpose is so clear, whose character is so steady that he never needs to chase anyone to prove his worth. Ironically, when you stop making attraction your mission, you often become far more attractive. Not because you've learned a better strategy, but because you've become a better man. Remember this: the strongest relationships are never built by one person chasing the other. They are built by two emotionally mature people who freely choose to walk in the same direction. That is the kind of connection Stoicism points us towards. One built on respect, freedom, discipline, and inner peace. Thank you for watching Stoic Wisdom today. If today's lesson gave you a new perspective, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which of these 5 reasons resonated with you the most? Share your answer in the comments below. If you enjoy exploring timeless Stoic wisdom applied to modern life and relationships, consider subscribing to our channel. We publish new videos every week to help you build stronger character, greater emotional resilience, and a quieter kind of confidence. Until next time, protect your peace, master yourself, and let your character speak louder than your pursuit.